Lewis will, quote, continue to be a threat to any community he may reside.
Neighbors called, said there's someone screaming, I hear glass breaking.
Police found Lewis's landlady, 81-year-old Catherine Davis, beaten and strangled to death. Her cat virtually dismembered. Lewis appeared to show superhuman strength.
By the time we got there, Mr. Lewis was already dead.
There was something definitely wrong with Johnny Lewis.
Katy Perry fell in love with an actor and wrote her hit song, The One That Got Away, about him. But really, Katy avoided a major problem by dumping Johnny Lewis, because this disgraced actor started his life off in a cult, began in Hollywood as a young kid, and then developed strong issues with drugs and violence. Johnny even killed his 81-year-old landlord before jumping to his own death. So let's get into it. We're going to be talking about the dark side of actor Johnny Lewis. I actually heard about Johnny's story because he was once Katy Perry's ex-boyfriend, but he's had a career of his own. He started acting as a teenager and essentially everything went downhill from there, because then he started committing crimes and eventually killed his 81-year-old landlord. So this guy has done a lot of damage. Now, right off the bat, I see some red flags when it comes to Johnny's story, because he was raised by someone who is in a cult in, which you can't really say on the internet because those people are intense. They will go after you. Now, I don't know exactly what Johnny's father did as a counselor for, but eventually he started acting at the age of 16. But this teenage acting career didn't come out of anywhere, because Johnny's mother actually had been putting him in auditions ever since he was 6 years old. He started out with advertisements before moving on to sitcoms like Drake and Josh, Malcolm in the Middle, and I guess he ended up going on the OC and Criminal Minds. So he's been on a lot of shows.
He started acting at age 7. He was on an elevator safety commercial. Then he went to a Pizza Hut commercial, and a talent agency found him and said, hey, we want you to work for us. They quickly started putting him in really popular shows like Here in Seventh Heaven, Malcolm in the Middle, and Drake and Josh. By 2001, he continued getting new roles and was making enough money to move from his home with his parents into his own home in Los Angeles. You might recognize him from the movie with Hilary Duff, Raise Your Voice, The OC, and Smallville. He continued getting really good roles, was making really good money, and started dating Katy Perry in 2005.
Before we get into Johnny's problematic moments, let's talk about his relationship with Katy. They dated from the years 2005 through 2006, and Katy Perry actually revealed that he was the inspiration for her song, The One That Got Away. That song is so romantic, it's hard to believe that she wrote it about this man, because really, I feel like, Katy, you're the one that got away. And for good reason, because she even explained later on that she could tell that Johnny was headed down a troubled path. She said, I had to separate from him to get ahead and to focus on her career. He was in trouble then and she couldn't help him.
I'm sure you guys all remember the iconic song from Katy Perry, The One That Got Away.
Katy Perry dated Johnny back in 2006.
What was Katy Perry like back then when she was dating him? Do you remember anything about her?
Well, there were a lot of the parties, there were these acoustic nights where people were singing, and she was always singing and she was great, but I didn't even make the connection until a few years ago that it was her. I remember there was a girl named Katy Perry who Johnny was dating. Like, Johnny, he was the more famous one back then. Like, he was doing the OC and quintuplets. She blew up and she just really made it, but I didn't say more than like a hello to her.
Now, I do believe that Katy was a highlight of Johnny's life, but they broke up and eventually he moved on. 2009 was one of Johnny's final successful years in the industry. He then made the decision to quit the show Sons of Anarchy after 2 seasons. He then learned that his girlfriend Diane was pregnant with his child. After the birth of their daughter in 2010, his relationship with Diane soured and the two got involved in a custody battle. Now, I think this custody battle took a lot out of Johnny and affected his mental health, because that following year he got into a serious accident. Right before Halloween in 2011, Johnny incurred brutal head injuries during a high-speed motorcycle crash. He was instructed to undergo an MRI, but he refused. As a result, he soon began exhibiting strange, irrational, and suspicious behavior. This was in addition to his legal concerns, which included having to spend time in a rehab center. Now, going into 2012, it seems like this accident that happened in 2011, I mean, At this point, he was already struggling with drugs. He was ordered to go to rehab. He wasn't in a great place, but this head injury changed him. 2012 was chaotic. He got into trouble and he pled no contest to 2 charges related to assault with a deadly weapon and burglary. He was initially sentenced to a year in prison with additional days, but was released way earlier than expected. Like, he was supposed to go in for a year and he spent barely a month in there, which is so scary because 5 days after he got out, he beat his landlady, 81-year-old Catherine Davis, to death. Now, this is where the story gets really graphic because I can't imagine this young guy trying to harm an 80-year-old woman who's helpless. The body of 28-year-old Johnny Lewis was discovered in a driveway after the troubled actor fell or jumped from a rooftop following a fight with his landlord. Now, remember that Johnny's parents were involved with that cult. Well, this woman was also involved with this cult, and he has also been known to be involved with them. And I really do think there's some things that they're doing behind the scenes and pulling strings. And I mean, it's not even like I think we know at this point, seeing people expose. But he took this really far because he not only killed this woman, but he also bludgeoned and dismembered the woman's cat. Like, what? Why go after her pet after that?
There was something definitely wrong with Johnny Lewis. It's so incredible how mental illness, and I see this in my own experience, makes people unravel in ways that are completely unimaginable. And it's incredibly sad that the life of his landlord and her cat was brutally taken away. And then, of course, he himself died accidentally. And we didn't actually have a diagnosis that we could put our finger on. He clearly had some sort of mental illness. By the way, addiction is a form of mental illness.
Now let's go by step of what happened between Johnny and Catherine. Now, the home she owns is known as Writer's Villa and supposedly has a bunch of guest suites, and they rent out for about $1,600 to $3,000 per month. Well, neighbors called the police after hearing a woman screaming and witnessing Johnny attack 2 men with a piece of wood out front of the property. Other victims, a neighbor and handyman, were badly beaten after the tussle, which lasted about 3 to 4 minutes. The fight between the neighbor and the handyman started because Johnny was trying to break into a neighbor's home. The men went on to fight Johnny, but they told the officers that Johnny had like some superhuman strength and was phenomenally strong, so he must have been on some crazy drugs. The neighbor said Johnny was hardly deterred by the blows he took. It was like hitting him with a fly swatter. So they were like hitting Johnny, but he was not lightening up. He then went on to scale the wall again to fight with the handyman and the owner of the second house. And because he was climbing up onto this house, he essentially like fell or dropped, and that drop is what killed him, even though all those blows didn't do much. Police believe the actor had taken either PCP or meth before the incident. Other reports claim detectives are investigating whether he may have been on Smiles, a new designer drug known as C2I. Or 1. I haven't heard of that one. Now, this incident is scary. We've got an older woman who is dead. We've got her cat is dead. And then we've got 2 random pedestrians who are injured. And then now Johnny himself is dead. Police said there was obviously something wrong with him. What that was exactly is not known to us at this time. The actor had been in and out of rehab for drug abuse for over the past 6 months, and his co-stars on the show Sons of Anarchy were aware of the problem he was battling.
5 days he had been out of jail, and there was even a probation report earlier in the year where they said Lewis will, quote, continue to be a threat to any community he may reside. So how could this happen?
Yeah, no one's going to blame the probation officer here. After that probation officer wrote that report, he went to a treatment facility, completed it for a month. Remember, probation officers only have so much authority. They're there to basically enforce the rules of the court. And unless there's a direct violation, that's really all a probation officer can do. So this probation officer certainly did everything that he or she could have done.
It's such an unfortunate story, and it's so sad to think that this old lady was killed in a brutal way because they think that she died from blunt force trauma. So him just like hitting her in the head. Like, imagine if that was your grandma or a family member. Like, that's such a sad way to go after 81 like beautiful years. But here's the driveway where he fell. I guess he was scaling this building, which how do you even climb something like that? Like, it looks flat. I guess when the paparazzi showed up on the scene, they could still see the blood splattered on the ground. hence the blurring right here. One neighbor said, "It's a gruesome scene. It's a very senseless crime. It's someone that's just defenseless, someone that's in their late years, 70, 80 years of age, and then living in this type of neighborhood, you don't expect anything like this to take place." One person said, "I was praying to God. God," I said, "clean up this mess here because this is an evil place. Evil place, all kind of people. By the way, coming, different people coming. Going a couple of days, disappearing, coming, other people." Wait, what? This neighbor sounds like they're onto something.
I was working here when happened the trouble, but unfortunately I don't are present when past that. But according to the information from one worker, my partner, he received attack from the guy, I don't know who, and he take some pool and kick his face. So unfortunately don't kick the eye, but close to the eye.
Now, when Johnny died, there were a lot of other celebrities who acknowledged his death and sent well wishes because he was popular. He worked in the industry for a very long time. So even though this crime was so disgusting and evil, there were people like, Hilary Duff, who said RIP. And then we've got his father, Michael Lewis, who said that Johnny was a bright star of our lives. We always looked up to him. And now I guess we'll have to look up a little higher. Some of his friends said that Johnny had lost his way, seemingly referring to his drug abuse. So he was so far gone on drugs, and I wonder why the cult didn't step in. I wonder if the cult pushed. I don't know. I know this is Johnny's problem, but the fact that his family and all these people are involved in this cult makes me question how they're involved.
It happened Wednesday morning at the Writer's Villa, a sort of bed and breakfast for young people working in Hollywood.
We got a series of 911 calls. Neighbors called, said there's someone screaming. I hear glass breaking. Our officers rushed up there. By the time we got there, Mr. Lewis was already dead.
Police found Lewis's landlady, 81-year-old Catherine Davis, beaten and strangled to death in a bedroom. Her cat virtually dismembered in a bathroom. Eyewitnesses told police Lewis appeared to show superhuman strength.
Mr. Lewis at some point jumped over a fence into a neighbor's yard and for some reason attacked a painter who was over there working painting the house. The painter and the homeowner were able to get him away. He jumped back into his yard where he was staying and at some point shortly thereafter fell to his death.
Now, we didn't get any statements from Katy Perry about Johnny, but we did get some headlines claiming that she was devastated. But she really avoided a big problem there because he had a lot of red flags from the beginning. Again, his family being involved in that church, I feel like is a problem. But then secondly, being a young actor forced on the scene and then getting into drugs. It's just another young person who's unfortunately gone and took other people with him. And that cat. I'm including that cat. But I want to hear what you guys think in the comments below. If you have another video idea for me, here is my email. And I'll see you in a new one soon. Bye, guys.